In the rugged highlands of ancient Galilee, where olive trees whispered secrets to the wind and stone villages clung to the earth, there lived a shepherd named Eli. For decades, he had wandered those lonely slopes, his calloused hands guiding a flock that was his only family. The villagers knew him as a man of few words, his face etched with lines of sorrow no one dared to ask about. Years ago, a plague had taken his wife and infant son, leaving him hollow, his prayers unanswered. He buried his grief in the rhythm of his work, guarding sheep, mending fences, staring at stars that felt as distant as God. Winter arrived early that year, sharp and unrelenting. The skies turned iron gray, and the winds carried the bite of frost. On the eve of the solstice, Eli's flock huddled together in the pen, their breath rising in ghostly clouds. He prayed silently, as he always did, though the words tasted like ash. "Are you even there?" he muttered, his voice swallowed by the gathering dark. The storm struck at midnight. Thunder roared like a beast unchained, and lightning split the heavens, illuminating the hills in jagged bursts. Panic seized the sheep. They bolted, tearing through the frail wooden gate, scattering into the labyrinth of ravines below. Eli lunged after them, his cloak whipping like a tattered banner, the icy rain needling his skin. For hours, he stumbled through the chaos, his lantern snuffed out, his voice raw from shouting. The cold seeped into his bones, and despair, deeper still. This is how it ends, he thought, forgotten, unseen. But then, a stillness. The tempest paused, as if the world itself held its breath. Through the veil of snow, a soft light bloomed, golden and warm, like dawn breaking in the heart of night. Eli shielded his eyes, trembling. There, amidst the swirling chaos, stood a man, not a man, more. His robe gleamed whiter than fresh wool, his presence radiating a peace that made the storm seem trivial. Jesus. The name surged into Eli's mind, unbidden, undeniable. Without haste, the Lord knelt in the mud, his hands outstretched. From the shadows, the lost sheep emerged, not fleeing but drawn as if by an invisible song. A lamb limped forward, its leg wounded, and Jesus cradled it tenderly, his touch sealing the gash as though it had never been. Eli collapsed to his knees, tears freezing on his cheeks. The weight he'd carried for years, the grief, the doubt, shattered like ice. He felt it then, a love so vast it rewrote every scar, every moment of loneliness. You were always here, he realized, waiting for me to stop running. By morning, the storm had vanished. Eli awoke in a sunlit meadow, his flock grazing calmly, their coats dry, their eyes bright. On his palm, a mark pulsed faintly, a tiny cross, seared into his skin like a whisper. When he returned to the village, the people gathered, wide-eyed. They'd seen the storm's wrath. They'd heard Eli's cries. But now, the shepherd stood taller, his voice resonant with a certainty that stirred their souls. Weeks passed. The mark on Eli's hand never faded. Wherever he went, the sick found healing at his touch. The weary found rest in his words. Travelers journeyed for miles to hear him recount the night heaven walked beside him. "He meets us in the storm," Eli would say, his gaze distant, yet aflame. "Not to end our pain, but to carry us through it." Years later, when Eli's hair turned silver and his steps slowed, a new shepherd took his place, a young man orphaned by war, his heart as fractured as Eli's once was. On a cold winter's night, as another storm threatened, the old man pressed his scarred hand to the boy's chest. "Listen," he whispered, "even in the dark, he is near." And high above, the stars burned a little brighter,